welcome to Meeple. I'm PJ, and with me is Gareth. And today we're going to talk about operating systems. Three of the most popular game mechanics, and maybe our favorites as well. Gareth, how are you?
I am very well. This is an episode I've been looking forward to. Can't beat a good bit of mechanics, can you?
You really can't. I got to tell you, this time I'm super excited to talk to you about it. This was an interesting episode to prepare for. So
yeah. I think you're going to talk about mechanics. So we've chosen three, and then we'll just have some dialogue around some games that I guess we both love that feature that mechanic in some way.
Somehow, yes.
Some way.
So we'll launch right into it. And to be fair, let's preface by saying that interest of time, we chose three. Obviously, there's so many mechanics that we could talk about. We could probably spend an entire year and do an episode on each mechanic. So if we didn't talk about one of your favorites, maybe we'll get to it one day. So the first one we agreed on was tile placement mechanic, right?
Yep.
So doing some research, just a few features and a brief synopsis of what makes a game a tile placement game is that it's a game featuring the placing, imagine that, a tile, or a piece or a component of some sort, to either score victory points when you place said tile, or to trigger abilities, often based on the tiles or pieces that are adjacent to the tile you just placed. And that, in a nutshell, is what makes a game a tile placement.
There are so many ways that you can describe games as tile placement, aren't there?
There really is. You're absolutely right.
In fact, I've just finished playing Whistle Mountain, which is a tile placement polyomino, dropping tiles, dropping machines to score mega points. Have you played
Very
that game?
good. I have not, so tell me about it.
Yeah, you've got flying machines. It's in the same world as Whistle Stop. But this is all around as a mountain that your builders are climbing up, building scaffolding. So you need to get scaffolding polyomino tiles. You then position those on the mountain side at the bottom, and then you can classic three. You got three workers, three ships. You put them out, and then whenever you're ready, you can bring them back, either all of them or even just one. And when you bring them back, you can build up the mountain, and scaffolding goes down first, and then you can position machines. There's small machines like 2x2, medium size, which I think 3x2, and there's large machines, which is 3x3, and they all have different powers. Sometimes they're resource generating, other things they're conversion, and you start putting them onto the mountain side, and about 9 tiles up there's a bridge, and if you go over the bridge, you're starting to impact the environment, and the water on the mountain starts to melt, or the ice starts to melt, should I say. And then, so from the bottom of the board, the water level rises. So you kind of got this tile placement mechanic along with worker placement. Makes for a very nice strategic game and does not get enough love at all.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. So does it have when you're placing the tiles, this mountain, this is like a shared board in the center, or are you doing this in front of each player?
Yeah, shared board in the center.
Yeah.
When you put a tile down, if you touch any other scaffolding edges, you get a point for each. And honestly, it's a point fest. There's so many ways of scoring points.
Nice.
And your ships can either stand on the grid, that hasn't got scaffolding around, or you can land actually on the machine. If you land on a machine, you get everything around it. So if you touch two machines, you trigger both. So really nice ways of making combos. And so everyone's kind of trying to do well for themselves, but of course, when you put your own tile down, other people take advantage of it as well.
Right.
So yeah, really nice. But as I literally just finished playing it, I thought that's actually quite a good timing to talk about.
That's great timing. It's almost as if we planned it.
Yeah, and that one we didn't, which is amazing. What other games have you got to tile placement?
So tile placement is my absolute favorite. I don't care who you are, and I don't care what the game is. If it's got tile placement, I'm in. I don't have to think about it. I'm down. And what's interesting is the one that calls to mind, I'm sure it calls to a lot of people's minds as well, is Carcassonne.
Yeah, classic.
I think what makes Carcassonne so interesting and what makes tile placement specifically for me, I love manipulating maps. Sometimes when I play Carcassonne, I don't even care about scoring points. I'm like, I don't like holes in the map. So for those of you, if you played Carcassonne, you know, you're trying to complete features on the map, right? So if I'm playing, right, and Gareth's building a city, but he needs a piece to finish his city. But if all the pieces around it are laid, I cannot abide a vacuum. And if I draw the piece, I'm placing that tile down, and points be damned, I need a beautiful map at the end of the game. One of the things I was disappointed when researching what makes tile placement, for me, I thought it was about placing tiles and manipulating a map, but looking at the list of games that are considered to be tile placement, that's not necessarily the case. Not at all. I mean, I came up with a couple of tile placement examples for this episode, and they're not like that. But what excites me is manipulating the map. Yes. I love to do that.
I think when I was looking through a list and some of games that highlighted to me, which I wouldn't have put as tile placement, but like Dominant Species came up, which is that super brutal player aggressive game of being the most dominant species where you're putting tiles down.
Yes.
Of course, when you put the tiles down, you're changing the landscape and you're disrupting obviously other species. So it's that one jumped out as one of my favourites. What's criminal is Carcassonne. I think I've only played it twice, and I know that whoever taught me wrong, so it's not even in my collection, which feels terrible.
It was again, it's another game that my wife introduced me to. I didn't know tile placement, and I think that's what appealed to me. I love that exploration. I think of Nemesis, although Nemesis is not a tile placement. You're just flipping the tiles over. But so, there's another mechanic, is that 4X mechanic, right?
Oh, yeah.
For me, if you get me at a table in a 4X, pretty much count that I'm not going to win because I'm doing one thing only, and that is explore. Because exploring usually incorporates the laying of tiles and manipulating the map. I just want a map. I love maps. I probably should have been a cartographer rather than a historian, but well, there you go.
I mean, Carcassonne is another good one. The other one I was thinking of was I guess a more modern versions, Land and Sea.
Land and Sea. Haven't played it, but I know the game.
Similar, tiles, building islands, completing, I think, locked in sea sections, and then completing islands. So that's probably the closest I've got to a Carcassonne clone.
Sure.
But yeah.
What are your thoughts on My City?
Never played. So if you played?
No, I have.
Tell me more.
So it's 2 to 4 players. And to be fair, anyone who's interested in My City, it does not play very well at 2. It's got a campaign, which is brilliant. There's like 12 envelopes, and you open an envelope, and it dictates how you play the game. But it's at polyomino. You're building a city in front of you. You each have a map, and you're manipulating the landscape. We start with the same landscape, but eventually new types of buildings. Each tile is a building, and you're trying to match colors together, and the grouping of, I guess, red, yellow, and blue, I think. I may be wrong about that, but like your largest grouping of red buildings, you will score like 1 point per building of that group.
Okay.
And then you have factories and temples, and there's all kind of really cool things that come up later. So it is tile laying. It is at polyomino, and it's right there in front of you, though. Again, it's not a map that's commonly shared in the middle of the board, right? It just doesn't play well at 2. But the cool thing is when you're done, you can still play it normally afterwards. So it's not really a legacy, but you do manipulate the board because you're going to put stickers on your mats.
So it's unique to you by the end of it.
You and your wife ever make it out here and the 4 of us play, we can play My City.
Nice.
Because we can flip it over to the other side and just play My City, and you don't have to worry about the campaign.
Okay, got you. Yeah, nice.
Which is really nice that they do that. And I think the base game plays really well at 2. Campaign, you really want 3 to 4
okay.
for that competitive edge. So
have to try it out. Other games I've got on my list was, Ark Nova, which I now see is in the top 10 on the Board Game Geek list. Rapid rise to fame. It's obviously got tiles on it, those hexagonal tiles that you're building.
Yep.
And of course, Castle of Burgundy, which is just finished on Game Found for the super deluxe all-in version.
Absolutely.
Did you back?
We just played Ark Nova yesterday.
Did you? How was it? How did you?
I lost by 2 points. Katie scored 24 and I scored 22. So, win for the wife.
That's nice. Yeah, I find sometimes it's either an absolute whitewash or the scores are really, really close, depending on whether you keep an eye on what people are doing.
Okay, so the second mechanic that we agreed to talk about was worker placement, which I know is a favorite of yours,
Gareth. My favorite.
Mm-hmm. It's a really close one for me too. But tile placement, manipulating maps, is just a little bit more fun, just a little bit. So quick rundown on worker placement, a synopsis. This is a game where players place tokens, usually, but not always, in the form of a meeple. And you place them to trigger an action, usually for a one-time bonus or a one-at-a-time action. So gaining resources. This can lead to, unfortunately, depending on how you feel about it, action blocking, where you can block your opponent from gaining an action or collecting a resource because your worker was placed there first. So the key to worker placement is turn order. Turn order is vital. Absolutely. In a worker placement game. So this is your favorite, Gareth. You got a favorite game in mind?
Well, I spoke about two of them on our gateway game session.
But you did.
The two, which if you want to listen to that bit, I'd go and listen to that episode 2. But two that always bring to mind when I'm teaching that mechanic is Viticulture and then Laws of Waterdeep. Nice intro to that mechanic where you pop it down. Generally, they're simple mechanics, simple actions, so you're not overwhelmed by what you're trying to achieve. It's put worker down, do something, and then obviously it comes the end of the turn or end of the round, and you take your workers back.
But the strategy is
all about the timing,
and the strategy is deep,
and screwing over your neighbours. or if you're not paying attention and take it out of turn, somebody generally decides to take what you wanted to do, which may compromise their own gameplay position, but it's always quite fun.
So aside from Vidi and Lords of Waterdeep, what's another one that you would your go-to?
Absolute favourites is Zolkin. So that's the Mayan temples with the 5 cogs in the middle. So not only is it a worker placement, it's also got its time mechanic. So you can put on or you can take off. When you take off the workers off the cogs, you take the action, or you can put one down. And then at the end of that turn, when everyone's been, the cogs will turn and your worker goes around that cog. And the longer it stays on there, the more powerful or more useful that worker is when you remove it from the board. But you do each turn have to put down or pick up. So it's all about timing of when it's going to come off, when you put things down. You can build some nice combos up. So yeah, that is a delicious worker placement game and one of my favourites. Have you played?
I have not, and no, I have not.
That needs to change. That's like you teach me Carcassonne properly, and I need to teach you Zolkin.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what we need to do is just like meet on a yacht in the middle of the Atlantic. That way we don't
on an island. We have to build one.
I mean, what was the destroyer of the battleship where Churchill and Roosevelt met for the first time somewhere in the Atlantic or something back in World War II?
That's what we need. I can't remember.
That is what we need. Yes, we need a
battleship. Yeah, just for our board game collections that can sit on the boat. Just going to sail around the world in the battleship. That's the answer for everything.
So if anybody knows where we can get a battleship and would like to donate that to Meeple to Meeple, please, that's a beautiful description. So you made a comment that I thought was interesting. In Tzolk'in, you either place a worker or you pick one up.
Yeah, you're either putting down or picking up, so you can.
So it's not like the end of the round where everyone collects their workers.
No, so workers are on. You can have a worker on a cog for maybe up to 8 or 10 different rotations. So you can get more work. I think you start with 2. It might be 3. Can't remember. But you can go up to about 5. So of course, the more workers you have, the more you can put one down, wait a turn, one down. Or you can just fire up, like I've played before, where you can put all your workers onto one cog and let it stack, and then take them all off, triggering whichever the bonuses are. One of the cogs is all about food, another one is about stone and gold, and there's a really cool skull resources that you have to put into, I think it's Chichen Itza, which is more worshipping, and you get more points there. The longer it's round, I think I maybe have 20 spaces on there. But there's other stuff. There's tracks to go up, different worshipping of different temples. There's buildings to build. It's got everything from resource collection through to that timing mechanic. I would highly recommend, if you like a worker placement, to go and try out Zolkin.
Zolkin, I like it. So one on my list. Well, let's be fair, it's multiple. It's more like a designer. It's Vital Lacerda, right?
Yeah, awesome.
Pretty much all of his games are worker placement. But for me, the Lacerda game that stands out is The Gallerist.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you've not played a Lacerda game before, you're not familiar, The Gallerist, and of course it's not surprising that the Archivist would bring this up.
Of course.
You're running an art gallery, and there are meeples that represent dealers and art critics and things of that nature, and you're trying to get them into your gallery. All the while, you're trying to promote new artists and then get their artwork into your gallery and try to sell them. You're trying to curate your collection and then sell pieces based on private objective cards that you receive at the beginning of the game. And like all Lacerda games, there's an executive action that you can take for free, and then your main action by moving your worker, and then execute that action. And it's very complex. Like most Lacerda games, you have to do action A before you can get to action B to C, and they don't trigger one another. You have to do it and then wait in your next turn and do it again and hope that your opponent has not blocked you.
Yeah, and I think in the Garage you've got is it a kick out action? When if you go to where somebody else is, they get a chance to do an action either by spending some of their fame, I think it is, or they can do some executive actions.
I think it's called influence, but either way, whatever it's called. Yeah, you're right. And I think that's what makes Gallerist stand out is that kick out action. It's like, okay, you're going where I was, but I still get an opportunity to take the action before I leave.
Yeah, it's really nice. And it looks lovely. The art, I think it's out of all the games, that's the one I prefer to teach. I think it's the most accessible, even though it's still complicated. Mm-hmm. It's slightly lighter, in quote marks, and there may be an On Mars, which just feels like a beast to teach.
That is a hard one, which is why it did not make my list. It's so complicated. It's thematically perfect and beautiful, but oh my goodness, it's a brain burner.
Any other examples?
So I do have. I've got 2 more real quickly. For an intro, I think one of a really good introduction to worker placement is Stone Age.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just straight up, right? Everything you and I have just been talking about, Stone Age hits it perfectly. There are no surprises. But for my money, it's Uwe Rosenberg's Fields of Arle.
Oh, that is awesome 2-player. Well, it's 3-player now as well, isn't it? With the expansion.
There is an expansion that gives you a 3rd player. Yeah, the thing that makes it beautiful is it is a exclusively 2-player game. If you have a spouse or a child who enjoys gaming with you, 2 players are magical. My wife and I love 2-player games. Fields of Arle really hits home because we both enjoy worker placement, and most worker placements aren't very good at 2. But this one's designed for 2 players, and it is magic.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's one of my wife's favorite games as well. Like all for the same reasons. It just yeah, so many things you can do, so much you can build. The whole autumn, winter, and summer, spring, summer timing works a treat. Yeah, I'd highly recommend Fields of Isle for anyone who wants a 2-player. Medium heavyweight, I'd say, probably worker placement game.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, medium to heavyweight, absolutely. Yeah.
The other two I've got on my list is, I guess the other end for lighter is the family-friendly Parks, which is the one where you go trekking. You can pick it up from stores, where it's very simple, jumping forward, taking up spaces. And then one I, again, play a lot is Raiders of the North Sea, Garfield Games, which, again, is a nice entry, maybe secondary game for worker placement when you're going raiding with Vikings, so who can't beat a theme of Vikings?
So you would choose Raiders over Architects? From Garfield. Granted, we're pulling from Garfield now.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Architects is good, but Raiders got some soft spots because it's been around the longest and we've taught a lot of people. But we always play it with this expansion Hall of Heroes, I think it's called. The one with the board at the bottom where you've got the mead added to the game.
Yes.
That's a must.
So should we talk about our third and final mechanic?
Go for it.
So we had agreed on tableau building. This is an interesting one. I know Gareth enjoys tableau building. I have more to say about the mechanic than I do games. So
it's all on me. You do the mechanic, Ben.
Yeah. So doing research, what defines a tableau building mechanic? What makes a game tableau building? It's a game where each player has a visible array or tableau of components or tiles, most commonly cards, which they purposefully build in front of them to create a chain of abilities or actions, or to score victory points or gain additional bonuses and actions, right? Why are you telling me all that? What does that mean? And so it's really interesting. So a tableau, right, is kind of like a still scene, right? And you're building it in front of you. So let's say you're playing a tableau and you're putting the cards in front of you, right? Well, the scene is not moving. It's not in motion, right? It's to pull from the cinema, right? The French phrase mise en scène, right? Is putting the scene on the screen, but in this case, you're putting it in front of you. So what's interesting in New Orleans, where I'm from, during Mardi Gras, I know everyone knows about the parades at Mardi Gras, but what was more popular, it's less popular nowadays, but some of the older organizations still do this. They'll have a masquerade ball that's exclusive to their members, and they'll have a huge human tableau on the stage. So you'll have all of these people dressed in period costume. There'll be a set built, and they'll just sit still and form a tableau for the members of the ball to enjoy, right? And so that's what you're doing when you play a tableau building game, is you're building this tableau in front of you. But in terms of game mechanics, you're getting victory points or you're activating abilities, which kind of bleeds into the engine building game mechanic as well. So victory points and actions and gaining resources, but the main component is that you're building a tableau in front of you.
Fascinating. What a description. What a description.
Right? Yeah. So talk to me about tableau building games. I don't know that I have many in my collection, so I'm interested to hear what you got to say.
So I've got 5 written down. I guess one that a lot of people would relate to would be Wingspan. So while that
was on my list as well, yes.
That's an easy one that is incredibly popular. You are drawing birds cards from up to 3 decks, and then you are putting them into their relevant environment, and the cards do everything from give you additional food, score your points, let you take eggs, etc. And as you play through the game, you get more and more different birds, and end up you can do a combination of actions through them all, that you get stronger and more powerful and activating more points at the end of the game. So Wingspan's probably an easy one that if you played it or if you want to check it out, that I'd have a look at.
But to be fair, it is an amazing game, right? Like
It's absolutely,
and
good.
it's totally accessible.
Yeah. Another one that's good. I suppose another good example of an entry to tableau building would be Wingspan, because the theme is, as I say, it's so accessible. Again, we've taught that to new gamers and played it with plenty of seasoned gamers. It's good for everybody and deserves all the success that it has had.
So you got 4 more.
So completely different, Through the Ages, which is a kind of civilization game. You're playing through 3 eras. It's huge. It's a big old game. It's complex, but you are starting in like Stone Age, Iron Age times, and collecting cards, everything from buildings to the kind of mining to technology, through to sort of your armies. And again, everyone's angling for what you need. And the game goes on. Again, it's probably like a 2.5 hour game. Plenty of aggression. There's no nicety on this one. But that one, again, you've got your own little world and you're trying to compete with your neighbours. But is probably a heavier example of a tableau for me. I've got Seven Wonders Duel, which is a lovely 2-player version of Seven Wonders, which is also card tableau laying, which again is really accessible, incredibly popular in terms of games, 2-player only. Each round you're drawing cards from a set of cards laid out in the middle, everything from resources, so stone and wood, to buildings, to armies, and then you are just competing for points and different ways of scoring those points, from set collection through to some of the buildings that you build early on allow you to build buildings in the future for free.
It is probably, in my opinion, the best 2-player game out there.
Yeah, we've played it a lot, and it's I'm not sure how much it is these days, but it's less than £20. It's got to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's $19.99 US.
Yeah,
I think
absolute bargain.
It's so good. It's so good. It's interesting though. That didn't hit my list. I don't think of it as a tableau builder, right? What is it about Seven Wonders Duel that makes it a tableau building game? Based on the description of tableau building I provided.
Yeah, so I think you are putting cards out to allow you to, I guess, set that scene for the second and third era, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as an engine builder, but
yeah.
For those of it, but all mechanics, they bleed together.
They do.
They really do.
The other one I've got, which might be an engine builder, it does fade, it does become grey, was Race for the Galaxy.
That is on my list as well. I think everyone agrees that's a tableau builder, but it's also an engine builder. So
because it starts to fire up mid-game, and so Race for the Galaxy, space theme game. We play it 2-player predominantly, fantastic 2-player. Accessible level is quite hard to get into. It's tons of icons and symbols. But once you get your head around how the mechanics work, which is you can play one of 7 cards from your hand, and if the other player does the same, then you don't get an exclusive bonus. If you are unique in the card that you play, then you get the bonus. And you're basically looking to build planets. Planets produce goods. Goods give you victory points. There's a fixed limit of how many victory points are in the game. When those points run out, game end. Or 16 cards, I think, off my head. Should have checked the rules before talking about this one.
So I'm gonna confess something to you.
You've never played?
Yeah, no, I've played Race for. I have. What I'm going to confess to you is that if you really enjoy Race for the Galaxy, I am the best opponent because I am terrible. I am absolute rubbish at this game. My brain just kind of leaves my body, and I don't know how cards work anymore when I play.
It's also a race because you're watching the other players. So not only are you trying to do your own thing, you know that like 1 or 2 more combos, they're going to trigger their engine part of that part of the game, and it's all over. You're like, I've got to hurry up, I've got to get my stuff, and you don't get the cards you need. But yeah, it is. I don't teach it very often because it takes a few games just to get your head around that mechanic.
It really does.
But
the icons,
fantastic. Yeah,
the icons are complex. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's 3 expansions that just steps it up with more icons.
Yeah, it's insane. So I've got a suggestion. It's a game that you and I love. It's near and dear to both of our hearts. And I wanted to see what you thought. And I played it Friday night.
Ooh.
How about Obsession?
Ooh, that wasn't on my list. But that is a great example. Yeah,
I mean, it's
I think
kind
that passes. So
it actually fits as a tile placement, a tableau builder, and a worker placement game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to renege on what we said last week. You're going to hear about Obsession every episode, probably.
Yeah, it's one of those. It is a game that we are obsessed about, and if you haven't played, I think the 3rd or the 4th print run, although it is currently, is due in the back end of summer, so kind of in Q3 of the year. And one of the best game designers, like, he's just a fabulous human being, right? Yeah, I mean, we've been talking to Dan quite a bit about a bit of a surprise for somebody who I'm sure will be listening, and just the way he supports the community, the way he just interacts with any questions you have about the game. I know that if you order the game through him or through a channel that he's got access to, he will send you a personal email outlining how to start playing the game, some really solid tips. You don't find that with any other designer I've ever met.
No, that's incredible. So I introduced it to a friend of mine Friday night who will be coming with us to Gen Con in August. He was a little leery of the theme, right? That whole Downton Abbey, that late 19th Victorian England, Jane Austen, right? He was really worried about the theme, but he found the game and the game mechanics to be very accessible.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
it's solid. And
I think it's a game that I ignored because potentially the theme, I'm not a Downton Abbey fan, but then the more I heard about it, the more I watched, I was like, this feels and sounds like a game that I'm going to love. And then, all in, got a copy, the expansions, play it all through, and everyone we've taught it to has had that same experience as your friend.
Absolutely. And as I'm famous for saying, and people have heard me say this before, the obsession is real.
Yeah.
And Gareth and I want to share that obsession with all of you, so you need to pick up a copy of Obsession. It is the only game that I own that I'm bringing with me to Gen Con.
Yeah, you got to share. Share the love. Become obsessed about Obsession.
Absolutely, yes.
So it's probably a good place to end this episode.
I agree. Obsession is a great way to end anything. No, that's beautiful. I love it.
So thank you. So I hope everyone's enjoyed those 3 mechanics. I feel as if we'll have some follow-up episodes talking about some of the other mechanics in the world, because there's plenty of them. So thank you, PJ.
Well, thank you, Gareth. And also to remind our listeners, the episode after this one, which I guess would be episode 4, is going to be about our favorite themes. So it's going to kind of parallel this one a little bit, right?
Yeah, there's definitely be some overlap. But we're talking about the theme, not so much the games, but with some examples, I think is the plan.